You're on the couch, cross your arms and stand straight up, no hands. Felt harder than it should, but here's what nobody tells you. That's not a strength test. It's a prediction. So what does your body already know that you don't? Skip this, and you won't find out which one you're already failing. I'm Atlas Reed. Subscribe, you belong here. Point 1, 10 seconds. That's the number researchers use to separate men whose balance is quietly protecting them from a fall and men who are already more exposed than they realize. And almost nobody over 60 has ever actually tested it. I watched a stronger man than me lose his footing on a bathroom floor, reaching for a towel rail that wasn't there. He'd been physically powerful his entire life. Strength never entered into it. His balance failed before his strength ever got the chance to matter. That's when I learned something most training programs never say out loud. Balance and strength are not the same conversation, and the body treats them completely differently. Here's the test. Stand near a wall or counter for safety, lift one foot a few inches off the ground, and time yourself. Research on single leg stance time links longer hold times to a materially lower fall risk. It's one of the simplest, most predictive measures we have. Think of it like a smoke detector for your balance system. It doesn't prevent the fire, but it tells you quietly whether the wiring underneath is still doing its job. At 61, 3 years into rebuilding strength I'd let slip in my 50s, the research on it says single leg stance time is one of the strongest simple predictors of fall risk we have, and almost nobody checks it before it matters. If 10 seconds already felt shaky, here's the next question worth asking. What happens the moment you actually have to get up out of a chair, under your own power, no hands? Point 2. The second test doesn't ask you to balance at all. It asks something simpler, and for a lot of men, more uncomfortable. How many times can you stand up from a chair in 30 seconds? Arms crossed, no hands. Most men don't think about this until after it's already happened once. A knee that doesn't want to cooperate on the third rep, a lower back that complains by rep 8. The research on men aged 60 to 74 puts a healthy range at roughly 12 to 19 stands in that window. Fewer than that, and it's not really about the legs. It's about whether the muscles that get you off a toilet, out of a car, or up off the floor are still doing their job without you noticing the gap. Picture it like a car battery. It can start the engine fine on a warm morning and still be too weak to turn over in the cold. The failure only shows up under load. 30 seconds in a chair is that cold morning test for your legs. Here's what's worth sitting with. A man can pass the balance test and still fail this one, because standing and staying upright pull from almost entirely different systems in the body, which raises the real question. If two different tests can expose two completely different weak points, what does it take to actually see the whole picture? Point 3. There's a third test physical therapists use that most men have never heard of, called timed up and go, and it's the one that usually reveals the gap the first two tests miss entirely. Here's how it works. Sit in a chair, stand up, walk 3 meters, turn around, walk back, and sit down, all timed from the moment you move. It sounds almost too simple to matter, but this test isn't measuring balance or strength on their own. It's measuring whether the vestibular, visual, and muscular systems in your body can hand off to each other smoothly in real time under normal daily conditions. Slower than expected times are consistently linked to higher fall risk in the research, and the reason is rarely just one weak link. It's usually several small ones working against each other instead of together. This is what doesn't get checked at a normal physical, not because it doesn't matter, but because nobody asks. And that's exactly the gap that closes once you train all three balance systems together instead of separately, which is exactly the multi-system balance training that Still Standing After 60 walks through. It's linked in the description. If you're watching on a TV right now, there's a QR code on screen. Scan it, and it'll take you straight there. That's a gap most single exercise routines never close back, because they train one system at a time and hope the others catch up, which brings up something worth sitting with for a second. What happens when the ground itself doesn't cooperate? Point 4. The fourth test is the one physical therapists quietly consider the most telling of all, and it isn't about balance while standing. It's about what happens on the way down and the way back up. Sit on the floor, cross-legged if you can, and then stand back up using as few points of contact with the ground as possible. No hands, no furniture if you're able. Researchers followed adults doing exactly this and found it predicted something far bigger than a wobble. Men who could do it using 0 hands had measurably better long-term outcomes than men who needed both hands and a knee just to get vertical again. That's not really a leg test or a balance test. It's a test of whether your body still has a relationship with the floor at all. And for a lot of men over 60, that relationship quietly ended years ago without anyone noticing it happen. What that number is actually protecting is something we're going to come back to, because there's a piece of this most men get completely wrong, and it isn't the one you'd expect. Try it right now, exactly where you're sitting. If you're in a chair, cross your arms and stand up, no hands, and count how many you get through in 30 seconds. If you're already on the floor or near it, it, try getting up with as few hands as possible and notice exactly where it got hard. Not a general feeling, an actual number or an actual moment. That number is yours, and it's the one that matters more than anything I could tell you. Point 5. Here's the piece most men get wrong about that floor test, and about all 4 tests before it. They treat each one like a separate problem to fix. Grip the chair harder, practice the wobble. But the 5th and final test is the one that shows why that approach quietly fails. Gait speed, measured over 4 meters of normal walking. Below roughly 0.8 meters per second, a little faster than a stroll, frailty and fall risk both rise sharply in the research. But gait speed isn't really a leg strength number. It's a whole body report card. How well your vision, your inner ear, your muscles, and your nervous system are already working together, whether you've ever trained them to or not. Balance doesn't fail all at once. It fails one system at a time, quietly. Vision, the inner ear, the muscles, until one ordinary afternoon asks for more than what's left. That's why testing these 5 things separately only tells you where you stand today. It doesn't tell you how to keep standing. The 5 tests aren't really 5 separate problems. They're 5 windows into the same one. A man who understands that isn't managing decline anymore. He's protecting something specific. Every stair he still wants to climb without thinking about it. Every grandchild he wants to get down on the floor with and back up again without a second thought. That 10-second test at the start wasn't really about one leg. It was the first sign of the same whole body system every one of today's tests was quietly measuring. And that's exactly the gap between testing these systems separately and training them as one, which most routines never close because they were never built to. Still Standing After 60 is built specifically to close that gap, training the vestibular, visual, and muscular systems together the way they actually work in real life, not as 5 separate drills. It's linked in the description, and the QR code is on screen now. The research is consistent on one point: risk compounds. A second fall is roughly twice as likely once the first one happens. And every month spent testing instead of training is a month those systems keep drifting further apart, not closer together. If this is the kind of training intelligence you want every week, subscribe. We put out videos weekly, and everyone is built for men serious about staying independent. I'm Atlas Reed. Keep doing the work.